Good morning, it's September 16th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Well, it's that time of year, everyone. We're coming to the end of the government fiscal year. It ends on September 30, and unless Congress can come to some agreement on the government will shut down at midnight on that date. And you have to ask yourself how we get here so often. Over and over, we see the threat by one party to shut down the government. Normally, it's the minority party, and this year is no different. Democrats are threatening to withhold their votes in an effort to force Republicans to give in to some of their demands. In the past, the party threatening to shut down the government normally gets the blame. Republicans have witnessed this over and over, and on the occasions that the government's actually shut down for a few days, the Democrats and the media blamed it all on Republicans because they would not deliver the necessary votes to pass the funding bill. Now, before we go any further, I think you should understand how the funding process works. There are 13 individual appropriations bills. Under normal circumstances, they should be marked up in the appropriate subcommittee and then sent to the floor of the House and Senate for a full vote. They can be debated and amendments added, and hopefully the bill is then passed and sent to the President for his signature. But for quite some time, this process has been ignored by both Republicans and Democrats for the simple reason that in order to pass the bill, you have to get 60 votes in the Senate. This is the result of Rule 22, the so-called filibuster rule, that forces senators to talk among themselves, negotiate, and ultimately end up with a compromise. But with the polarization of our politics, compromise become a dirty word. And as I said, this no longer seems to be occurring, and so absent passing these individual bills, we're left with a new process that is rapidly becoming the norm. The first step in this new process is to pass what's known as a continuing resolution, better known as a CR, that funds the government agencies that need funding at the same levels as the previous year. These CRs are for a set time. Sometimes they're for a few weeks while members continue to talk and negotiate, and other times they become the only way to pass anything to keep the government running for the next fiscal year. This is where we hear the term omnibus bill. When this occurs, all of the bills that have not been passed are cobbled together in one large bill that is put to the members as a take it or leave it proposition. Not a good way to run the government. And right now, today, President Trump is urging Republicans to unite and pass what is known as a clean continuing resolution to avoid a government shutdown at the end of the month. That means just pass everything as last year's funding. Now, Republicans have a narrow majority in the House and could pass a short-term funding bill without Democratic support if all of its members are on board. Attention would then turn to the Senate, where at least 7 Democrats would need to vote with all the Republicans to get the necessary votes in order to pass the bill. There are some Republican members in the House that are threatening to withhold their votes over various issues, and with a slim majority, Speaker Mike Johnson has to be concerned. But I believe in the end, Republicans will be able to get enough votes in the House to pass a clean CR. And that would shift the fight to the Senate. The Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, is already under fire for caving in on the last funding fight in the spring. But he's now willing to risk a shutdown at the end of the month if Republicans don't accede to Democratic demands. Schumer says he and House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries are united in opposing any legislation that doesn't include key health care provisions and a commitment not to roll them back. He argues that the country is in a different place than it was in March when he vigorously argued against a shutdown, and he says he believes Republicans and Donald Trump will be held responsible if they don't negotiate a bipartisan deal. This is a big gamble by Democrats because Republicans may be banking on being able to convince voters that Democrats are the ones to blame. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has said that Democrats better have a good reason for shutting down the government, and he does not intend to give them that reason. Thune has repeatedly said that Schumer needs to approach Republicans with a specific proposal on health care, including an extension of expanded government tax credits for many Americans who get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare. Some Republicans are open to extending those credits before they expire at the end of the year, but Thune has indicated he is unlikely to add an extension to a short-term spending bill, instead favoring a clean stopgap for several weeks without any divisive issues while Congress finishes its budget legislation. In other words, going back to regular order. What that means is Thune wants to keep trying to pass the individual appropriations bills and needs a multi-week extension to allow the Senate to accomplish that task. Democrats are also demanding that cuts be made in the Medicaid tax bill passed earlier this year be rolled back. And on that issue, I think he's being unrealistic. It's not going to happen. Schumer's also said that he and Democrats want $9 billion in foreign aid restored. Not sure how that's a winner with voters. So there we have the fight that's poised to begin. For Republicans to pass a clean CR, they need the votes of at least 7 Democrats. I'm not sure they can get that, so saddle up, be ready for a government shutdown unless someone blinks. One other little anecdote. During a shutdown, any government agency that's not funded must cease all activities. There are some that are excluded, like Homeland Security, Defense, and Social Security and Medicare payments. But the real kicker is the government workers get to stay home, but on every other occasion of a shutdown, they've gotten paid for the days they did not work. Pretty good deal for them, I think. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.